T9C got the fucking juice.
Silver's the new gold.
T9C got the fucking juice.
Silver's the new gold.
What's going on, everyone? Welcome back to our second live stream of the day. Our previous live stream, if you guys were tuned in, it crashed on us. Our software crashed. We greatly apologize for the inconvenience, man. Trust me, it pisses me off too when you got to end up starting a whole entirely new live stream. And we had a lot of people on that live too. It was jumping. We nearly was at 10 viewers, excuse me. But we appreciate everybody that's tuned in for the second live stream of today. So we're going to resume talking about, can Alabama trust Jalen Milroe against Texas? Will Anthony Richardson struggle against the Jags? Titans, Saints, going to be giving you guys my early thoughts on that, and my Detroit Lions versus Kansas City Chiefs preview and prediction. Let's talk about Alabama, and shout out to everybody in the chat. Alabama trounced Middle Tennessee State. They beat them boys 56-7. They gave them a spanking, keeping it PG-13. Jalen Milroe looked damn good against Middle Tennessee State. And I know it's Middle Tennessee State, but he had one touchdown run, his first touchdown run of the game, where it looked like the play was about to be a disaster, and he turned nothing into something. He scored a touchdown. This dude, when he decides to tuck and run, is one of the deadliest quarterbacks in all of college football. And if he plays really good against Texas, I don't see how Alabama doesn't walk out of that game with the victory. Against Middle Tennessee State, he looked pretty good as a passer. He was 13 of 18. He threw 3 passing touchdowns, no picks, and he has a really strong arm. His accuracy is hit or miss at times. He does miss some of the easy short throws here and there, but I think if you're Alabama, Jalen Milroe gives you a really good chance at being able to beat Texas. Even though he may not be the best, most polished passer, his athleticism is going to be able to bail you out of a lot of tough situations. And as long as you can keep this game within one score, I don't think that Alabama has anything to really be concerned about. Jalen Milroe was highly touted coming out of high school. He has all the physical tools to be a great quarterback, at least a great collegiate quarterback, with how well he runs the football. Alabama and their new offensive coordinator have obviously game planned around Jalen Milroe's skill set. And Texas, they do have a better defense going into this year's matchup compared to last year, especially with the addition of Jalen Catalon, who transferred from Arkansas. He was one of the better safeties in the SEC last year when he was healthy. So Alabama's offense is definitely going to get tested against Texas, but I definitely think Alabama can have success running the football on that Texas defense. Alabama has one of the best offensive lines in college football if we're just going off pure talent, and that offensive line definitely looked really impressive against Middle Tennessee State. And I know it's Middle Tennessee State. There's not really a lot of takeaways from that game. There's not really a way you can properly judge Alabama due to the talent discrepancy. But that offensive line just had a different attitude in that game that we haven't seen out of the Crimson Tide offensive line in a few years. Against Texas, this is going to be a tight game. It is going to be very close. But Jalen Milroe, I think out of all the quarterbacks that Alabama has on the roster, gives them the best chance to win. With the other quarterbacks, they don't have the athleticism that Jalen Milroe has, and they probably aren't the best passers. Jalen Milroe, he's not a great passer, but at least you can find ways to win with that athleticism. Read options, design quarterback runs. I don't think Texas defense is going to be able to keep Jalen Milroe from breaking off any big runs. He has very good vision. He's kind of like a running back when he decides to run the football. In Alabama, this isn't their first time having to win with a quarterback that has a Jalen Milroe kind of skill set. Y'all remember Blake Sims? When Alabama went all the way to the championship or the playoffs and they got trounced by Ohio State when they had Blake Sims at quarterback, Jalen Milroe is like a way more athletic version of Blake Sims. If Alabama can have success with Blake Sims, they should be able to win with Jalen Milroe. Tommy Rees, he's not a bad offensive coordinator. He's like a B-tier offensive coordinator that's on his way up. He was very fantastic at Notre Dame. I think Alabama's offense is in good hands with Jalen Milroe at quarterback. I don't think that Texas is going to be able to completely neutralize Jalen Milroe because of how great of an athlete he is with the ball in his hands. The moves that he's able to put on you, his elusiveness, his vision. I think Jalen Milroe can be trusted against Texas. Anthony Richardson is about to make his NFL debut against the Jacksonville Jaguars, man. And I was talking to a few homeboys of mine who are Jaguar fans, and they think that Anthony Richardson is going to struggle and that the Indianapolis Colts are going to get blown out. And it's not going to look pretty for Anthony Richardson in his first official NFL start. But the Jacksonville Jaguars, right? When you think about the Jags defense in 2022, they were really good against the run. They were 12th in the NFL in rushing yards per game allowed. And this is a unit that didn't really give up a lot of big explosive runs. But they did struggle inside of the red zone. Is the red zone defense going to improve? Is the third down defense going to be improved? The linebacker unit, Devin Lloyd, Foye Oluokun, they're going to have a tough task ahead of them, right? Even though Anthony Richardson is not the greatest passer, trust me, we know that things are going to look pretty ugly if Indianapolis is asking Anthony Richardson to win this game, throwing the football 40 times. But this man runs 4.43. He's 6'4", 255 freaking pounds, dog. This is like Derrick Henry at freaking quarterback. It doesn't matter if Anthony Richardson isn't the greatest passer. When you're going against this kind of monster at quarterback, you kind of got to change some things on defense. You can't defend Anthony Richardson with the same personnel that you defend against a pocket passer or any other quarterback. Anthony Richardson's athleticism is going to allow him to get away with a lot of mistakes. Against the Buffalo Bills, if you go and you watch his preseason debut, he was stiff-arming guys to the ground, running dudes over. Most linebackers in today's NFL do not weigh any more than 230 pounds. Anthony Richardson has like a 25-pound advantage on most linebackers. And once he gets into the open field, it's wraps. These defensive backs already hate tackling as it is. There are very few defensive backs that actually try to wrap up anymore. So you really think that anybody in the Jaguars secondary really wants to see 255 pounds, 4'3" in the open field? Good luck. This is a game that could be a lot tougher than what you may expect. Anthony Richardson, he may not have a great day throwing the football, but when he decides to run that thing, and he's probably going to be running that rock a lot, Jacksonville's defense may have some issues against this. This isn't your typical dual threat quarterback. This is Derrick Henry at freaking quarterback, dog. There are not a lot of NFL defenses that have the kind of personnel equipped to slow down an Anthony Richardson. Most linebackers aren't more than 230. So you really think that these linebackers are going to be able to stop Anthony Richardson every single play behind the line of scrimmage? You're going to have to stack the box. And when you stack the box, Anthony Richardson, he's shown the ability that if you give him enough time and you give him some easy throws downfield, that he can knock him down 7 out of 10 times. He may not consistently hit the open field throws downfield, but if you give Anthony Richardson some chances, he can make you pay. He has one of the strongest arms in the NFL. Anthony Richardson, he may have some ups and downs in this game against the Jacksonville Jaguars, but his athleticism and his size make him really challenging to defend against if you're Jacksonville's defensive coordinator. And they weren't good in the red zone. Indianapolis is going to be very good in the red zone with Anthony Richardson at the helm, because that's where his athleticism really makes him a threat in the red zone. When everything's condensed, there's not really a lot of the playbook that you have at your disposal. You got to get really creative down there. And with AR at the helm at QB, 255 pounds, you love the red zone opportunities that you're going to have with him against the Jags defense. Nobody wants to tackle this. And tackling Anthony Richardson can really wear down your defense over the course of 4 quarters. This man is 250 plus, 4'3", running downfield at you. This is Derrick Henry on steroids, but just happens to be able to throw the football really well. The Jaguars, they probably will beat Indianapolis, but I think it's going to be a very close game. I don't think anybody should be overlooking Anthony Richardson. Shane Steichen and Jim Irsay and Chris Ballard, they know what they're doing. They trust Anthony Richardson under Shane Steichen's tutelage. Shane Steichen isn't going to put Anthony Richardson in a position where he's completely going to fail. Shane Steichen, if you guys don't know, is Indianapolis' new first-year head coach. He was previously the Philadelphia Eagles offensive coordinator for the last couple of years. He also was Justin Herbert's offensive coordinator his rookie season. So if there's anybody who you can trust to develop a young quarterback, it's Shane Steichen. And trust me, they're going to have a game plan for Anthony Richardson. They wouldn't have made this man the starter if they were going to put him in a situation that's going to destroy his confidence. Anthony Richardson, his size and his athleticism makes him very difficult. Even when you think you have this dude wrapped up behind the line, he's still going to break out, make a couple of guys miss, and he's going to be off to the races. There's only so much you can do, and only so much you can do the game plan for somebody with this kind of size and athleticism. It's very rare. Anthony Richardson, with his God-given abilities, is going to allow him to make some things happen that most quarterbacks wouldn't be able to make happen in certain situations. There's a reason why he got drafted in the top 5. This is a 1% athlete, not just in the NFL, but in the whole entire world. You're not going to find somebody with this size, this speed, this open field, change of direction that Anthony Richardson possesses. It's going to be a little bit challenging for this Jags defense. Yeah, you may have a great game plan to bottle Anthony Richardson up, but once you get to see this dude on the field in in-game action, you're going to find out very quickly that He's going to make a lot of guys miss behind the line of scrimmage, and he's going to make a lot of things happen after contact. You don't want to see Anthony Richardson, and you don't want to try to tackle this guy. It's not going to be easy to get this man down. Even if he makes the wrong read on a read option or a design quarterback run, it's not really going to matter too much, because how many players on your defense are equipped to be able to tackle this man? This size is a problem. This athleticism is a problem. And Jacksonville is going to be the first team that gets to get the first knack at trying to figure out how to slow down Anthony Richardson. And it's a copycat league. So if whatever Jacksonville does works, many teams are going to be implementing that. But sometimes you got to have a particular personnel when you're going against somebody that has Anthony Richardson's skill set. The Jaguars have some solid players on their defensive line. I don't think they got anybody crazy athletic, but they do have Trayvon Walker, who's going to be really big in a game like this. Trayvon Walker was drafted #1 overall last year for situations like this. He was a freak coming out of Georgia. He has insane upside. He has insane athleticism. So Trayvon Walker is going to be really big in the Jaguars trying to slow down Anthony Richardson. Same thing with Josh Allen. You're going to need your pass rushers to wrap up and make sure they can get this fool on the ground. And it's easier said than done. 255 running 4.43. I'm going to reiterate that for the last time. It's not easy to stop. You can put all the guys in the box all you want to, but somebody who's less than 180 pounds is not going to have a great chance at bringing down Anthony Richardson. Once he gets past the front seven, it's wraps. So you really got to allocate all resources to slowing this man down. And if you do that, there's a good possibility that he could beat you over the top, throwing the D ball to Alex Pierce. This Jaguars secondary is not that great. They were very inconsistent last year. They gave up a lot of big plays through the air last season. So Jaguar fans can make it seem like they just have a guaranteed win against Anthony Richardson. He's going to struggle. I wouldn't be all that confident about that. Anthony Richardson is a really tricky player to defend against, and most defensive coordinators will tell you that. Even though he can't throw, his athleticism makes him really challenging the game plan for. You may make it seem like it's so easy to slow down the dude who's 6'4", 255 pounds, running 4.43 just because he can't throw the football that effectively, but that doesn't mean that he's not going to be an asset at all. That's why Indianapolis chose to start him, because you can still win games with that. Same way the Bears were winning last year with Justin Fields, despite him not being the most polished passer. Same way the Ravens were winning with Lamar Jackson his rookie season. I'm trying to tell you guys, like, there's a reason why Anthony Richardson is named the starting quarterback. They know it's going to be some growing pains, but they also know it's a way to win with this fool, because his size and athleticism is very rare. Even though we have more and more talented quarterbacks coming out, there are not too many quarterbacks that are going to have the kind of athleticism and size that Anthony Richardson has, and that's going to make him a problem for Jacksonville. You're not playing in the early 2000s or the late 1970s when you had 6'4", 6'3", 245-pound linebackers anymore. These linebackers are smaller. They're sacrificing size for speed, and eventually you're going to have to find somebody who's going to have the physicality to bring this fool down. Like, you go out there and you try to tackle Anthony Richardson, that fool would make you look like a crash dummy. There was a game a couple of years ago, early into Lamar Jackson's career, where the Ravens had to play the New England Patriots, and the New England Patriots, no matter what they did on defense, could not stop Lamar because they didn't have the personnel. You got to have the right personnel to slow something like this down. So don't think that Anthony Richardson, just because he ain't the greatest passer, he's going to struggle in every game, because there are teams that are not going to be equipped to slow this fool down when he gets into the open field and when he has one of those games where he just can't be stopped. He's one of those quarterbacks that could go for over 1,200 on the ground this season. Quarterback power, you better watch out. If your linebackers can't get downhill in this game and you're relying on Rayshawn Jenkins or Cisco or whoever else in your secondary to be your last line of defense against Anthony Richardson, you're going to be in a lot of trouble. It's going to be over with. The Tennessee Titans are going on the road to face off against the New Orleans Saints. The Saints are 3-point favorites going into this game, man. And let me tell you guys something. New Orleans is a team that you got to be really, really skeptical about. They could easily be this year's Denver Broncos team. Denver had a lot of hype. They got Russell Wilson. They got Nathaniel Hackett. They had a really talented squad. But when the season rolled around, it turns out Denver wasn't a good football team because they were poorly coached. And the New Orleans Saints, they have a more talented team than Tennessee going into this game. But do you know what gives Tennessee a little bit of an edge in this matchup? Mike Vrabel. Mike Vrabel is one of the most underappreciated head coaches in the NFL. This fool was winning with Joshua Dobbs at the helm at quarterback, nearly beat Kansas City on the road in overtime with Malik Willis. And he's going against Dennis Allen, a head coach who has a losing record up to this point in his career, isn't good with clock management, late game situations. He can be a little bit too conservative at times. Coaching in week one is really important because your teams can tend to start a little bit slow. Things can get a little bit sloppy. The New Orleans Saints, they got a really good team, but they may not be the most well-coached team in a game like this, especially week one. A lot of penalties occur. And with this mostly coming down to it being a close game, I kind of like Tennessee. And you really shouldn't be surprised if Tennessee beats New Orleans week one. I think, as a matter of fact, this is my biggest lock of this week. I don't like New Orleans as a team this year. I think they're massively overrated. If they had any other head coach but Dennis Allen, let's say they had Sean Payton, I probably would like them to win this game, and I possibly would like them to make it out of the NFC, but they got Dennis Allen, who's not a good head coach. And I think that Mike Vrabel may coach circles around Dennis Allen in a game like this. The reason why I think New Orleans is going to underachieve is that they're going to be able to beat up on the weak teams like the Bucs that have bad coaching, but when they go against a team that has better coaching than them, I think they're going to come up short more times than not. Tennessee isn't one of those teams that you're going to be able to get a fluke win over. They're one of those teams that they embrace going into the fourth quarter. They embrace being underdogs. And Tennessee is the best team in the NFL when it comes to embodying the personality of their head coach. You do not want to find yourself down a touchdown with 2 minutes left going up against that Tennessee defense if you're Derek Carr in that Saints offense. Tennessee has the advantage on defense. Their secondary is going to be really good. They got a really good front seven. They may have the most underrated defense going into this year. I didn't have them on my top 10 defenses, but they came very close to being on it. Linebacker really good. Speed in the secondary. Jeffrey Simmons is one of the best defensive tackles in the NFL. Tennessee has some dogs on that defense that match up very well against that New Orleans offense. If this is a low-scoring game that results in a final score of less than 20, it favors Tennessee. Tennessee is the kind of team that wants to be in ugly games. They want to go into the fourth quarter in a close game with you. So if New Orleans finds themselves in a competitive game late in the fourth quarter against Tennessee, I think it favors Tennessee. Not just is Tennessee a team that is more equipped to win close games, but what is the biggest determining factor in one possession scores? Special teams and coaching. The Titans have an advantage in a game like this. Their offense may not be as talented as the Saints, but I think that their defense is more than equipped to be able to neutralize that New Orleans Saints offense. New Orleans, they got a solid roster, but they are terribly coached. I mean, there were Saints fans who were a little bit mad because they weren't able to nab another linebacker. There's some concerns on that defensive line with the pass rush, with the run defense. I mean, there could be a really good chance that New Orleans ends up struggling against Tennessee in this game. New Orleans is a 3-point favorite, but I'm taking Tennessee with the under, and I like them to win outright. And that's the official prediction of mine, man. The New Orleans Saints, I think people are quickly going to find out why this team is heavily overrated and why Dennis Allen isn't it, as the head coach of this team. And the Titans are going to be the first team to show everybody why I've been saying New Orleans is fool's gold all off season. Football is back, people. The NFL regular season is finally here. We got the Detroit Lions taking on the defending, reigning Super Bowl champions, the Kansas City Chiefs. Now, there's a big storyline to follow for the Kansas City Chiefs. Star defensive tackle Chris Jones is probably not going to play in this game. Him and Kansas City are at odds with the new contract. And it seems like he may be willing to miss a couple of games until they come to a resolution with his contract disputes. And Chris Jones not playing in this game is a huge disadvantage for Kansas City. Chris Jones, not only is he phenomenal against the run, but he really gets after it. And anytime you have somebody as dominant as what Chris Jones is up front on your defensive line and you lose that, you lose a big advantage when it comes to your pass rush and your run defense. Detroit has one of the best offensive lines in the NFL. Top 10 at that, top 5 at best, maybe top 3. Who's going to step up when it comes to the pass rush of Kansas City? George Karlaftis, could he be somebody to have a big day in this game? They're going to need somebody else when it comes to their edge rusher position to step up and be able to get pressure on Jared Goff. Ben Johnson is one of the best offensive coordinators in the NFL. He was interviewed a couple of times for some head coaching opportunities. He more than likely is going to be a head coach next year. The Detroit Lions offense has a lot of talent. They got good receivers. They got Jahmyr Gibbs at running back. How the hell are you going to game plan for Jahmyr Gibbs? Jahmyr Gibbs is an X factor in this game, right? There are probably some other X factors that you can look at going into this matchup, but Jahmyr Gibbs is going to be a difference maker in this game for Detroit because he's starting to usher in this new era of players that are coming into the league called positionless players. Detroit has been playing Jahmyr Gibbs not just as a running back, but at receiver as well. And he's going to be a mismatch for anybody who's guarding him on that Kansas City Chiefs defense. There's not too many linebackers that are good enough to cover a guy like Jahmyr Gibbs in coverage because he's a fantastic route runner. And after the catch against most defensive backs, they're not good enough to wrap him up in the open field. Jahmyr Gibbs could have a really big day against this Kansas City Chiefs defense. And Detroit is a team that loves to throw the football deep. Jared Goff is one of the most accurate deep ball throwers in the league. Kansas City, they had a young secondary last year that was able to step up big in the playoffs in big moments. But is this secondary going to be able to be as good against a team like Detroit that's going to have a really good offensive line where you don't have Chris Jones being able to get after Jared Goff? That kind of concerns me. Kansas City, even though defensively you may have some concerns about them, they got a shot because they got Patrick Mahomes, Travis Kelce, and Mr. Big Red on the sideline, Andy Reid. Detroit's defense was terrible at everything last year. They couldn't stop the run. They couldn't stop the pass. They couldn't stop a cockroach. They couldn't stop a fly. And if me and you were playing quarterback against the Detroit Lions last season, they probably wouldn't be able to have stopped us neither. But they drastically overhauled this secondary last year. Well, this past offseason. They got Emmanuel Mosley, Cam Sutton, Chauncey Gardner-Johnson. They drafted Brian Branch. This is going to be a vastly improved secondary. And if they struggle against Kansas City's offense, you got to start looking at Brad Holmes and you got to ask him, hey, bro, like, we spent all this money to improve the secondary and we still getting carved up by quarterbacks. No matter how good Patrick Mahomes is, you spend a lot of money like what Detroit did. You expect that secondary to have some results. This is why you pay big money. This is why you drafted Aiden Hutchinson. This is why you got James Houston. Because you need to be able to slow down Patrick Mahomes in the big moments. Let's face it, this is going to be a game that probably is going to come down to the last possession. I was telling my friend earlier today that I don't think win or lose, Detroit is going to lose by more than one possession. They went 8-2 the second half of last season. They nearly beat Buffalo on Thanksgiving. They got talent on defense now. This defense, if they can't slow down this Chiefs offense in the fourth quarter, it's wraps. I'm sorry, but I think it's kind of money wasted. Aiden Hutchinson really cranked it up a notch during the second half of last year. They need him to be really big in this game. Same thing with James Houston. And the biggest question about Kansas City's offense isn't receiver. They got more than enough talent at receiver. You got Kadarius Toney, who is going to play in this game. You're going to have Justin Ross, who potentially could be a difference maker. You still got Travis Kelce. But Kansas City's offensive line, when it comes to their two offensive tackle positions, is a little bit concerning. They paid a lot of money to Jawan Taylor in free agency. I think that although he had a good year last year, that was his best season in all his years that he was in Jacksonville. So maybe Kansas City overpaid. We're going to see. He's going to get tested. They got Donovan Smith. Donovan Smith he's okay. He didn't have a great season last year, but we'll see if Andy Reid and this Kansas City Chiefs offensive line coach can work some magic with him. But Detroit, if they can get after Mahomes and they can keep him inside the pocket and keep him from escaping and doing all of the crazy things that he does when he breaks outside the pocket, I think they got a really good shot against this team to pull off the upset. This is a really improved secondary in Kansas City. Outside of Travis Kelce, they don't really have a legitimate number one wide receiver that I think is going to be able to win consistently against Detroit's secondary. Chauncey Gardner-Johnson versus Travis Kelce is going to be a really interesting matchup. You got to be able to slow down Travis Kelce if you want to be able to slow down Kansas City's offense. And Chauncey Gardner-Johnson, I think he's one of the perfect fits for a guy who could give Travis Kelce some issues. He can come down, cover Travis Kelce in coverage, and be able to hold his own. He's also really good against the run. Travis Kelce versus Chauncey Gardner-Johnson, look up for that this matchup in this game. It's going to be really big. If they can get Chauncey Gardner-Johnson to slow down Travis Kelce, I think it's going to be huge for Detroit being able to get key stops in this game. Now, what does concern me about Detroit is that I don't know about their run defense. I think their pass defense is going to be tremendously improved, but I think that this run defense is still going to be an issue. They do got Jack Campbell, who I love a lot. But asking a rookie linebacker going against Patrick Mahomes to be able to understand what Kansas City is going to do when they're changing plays, audibling things, changing things up is a hard task. And the middle linebacker is kind of like the quarterback of your defense. And Kansas City's offense, they throw a lot at you. So Jack Campbell, I like him, but I don't know about the other linebackers that they have. I don't know if Detroit's run defense is going to be great in a game like this. Isaiah Pacheco, we remember how big he was during Kansas City's Super Bowl run last year. He was a 7th-round pick. And he's a monster. Kansas City, offensively, their offensive tackles are really concerning, but you know with Patrick Mahomes, you're going to be able to put up points as long as Detroit can't keep him from making those big plays. If Detroit can keep Patrick Mahomes from improvising and just allow him to beat them from within the pocket, I think that this defense can get some stops because of how good their pass rush is. But if you're allowing Patrick Mahomes to get outside the pocket and buy time for receivers to get open, that's when you get in trouble, especially in third down. So the team that I'm going to take to win this game, it was really tough. I'm taking Kansas City, though. They're playing at home. It's really hard to win that Arrowhead. It is week 1. So there is a good chance for Kansas City to come out slow, come out a little bit sloppy. But I just don't know about Detroit's defense against Patrick Mahomes in this game. I do think that this defense is going to get stops. I don't think that it's going to be a bloodbath defensively. But I think late in this game, with Patrick Mahomes having the ball in his hands, I think he's going to slice and dice this Detroit secondary. And I think that's when Kansas City is going to pull away in this game. I like Kansas City to win. 31-27 is my final score prediction. I think that Patrick Mahomes gets the ball last and he leads Kansas City downfield and they get a game-winning score to win the game. I like Kansas City over the Detroit Lions week 1 Thursday night. This is it for this episode of the JT Sports Podcast. I apologize that our software had malfunctioned earlier, but I'm Really excited that football season is in full swing. Tomorrow we're going to be giving our college football single game predictions. We got some really good games coming up. Texas, Alabama, Texas A&M, Miami. We're going to be previewing those games. Also, we're going to be talking some NFL action as well. And we just got a lot of things to be looking forward to on the podcast. If you enjoyed today's episode, like the video, subscribe to the channel. We go live every day, Monday through Friday at 5 p.m. Eastern Time. Listen to the audio version of the JT Sports Podcast. Give us a 5-star review if you want to support us. All you got to do is type in the JT Sports Podcast on Apple or Spotify, and it will pop up. Or you can go down to the description down below. Give us a review via the Apple or Spotify links. And I appreciate you guys for tuning in to this episode of the JT Sports Podcast. I will see